The albino wolf walked alone across the barren alien landscape. Its fur, usually bright white, was dulled by dust, grime, and something worse, tiny parasites covering almost every inch of its body. The wolf's steps were slow and heavy. Each movement seemed to cost more energy than the last. Its eyes, pale and wide, reflected pain and confusion, as if it couldn't understand why the world around it was so cruel. On this planet, life was harsh. The ground was cracked, the wind strong, and strange plants and creatures often moved with silent menace. The locals, the dominant alien species, considered albino wolves unlucky or even dangerous. They whispered warnings to their children and avoided areas where the wolf might roam. No one dared to help it. In fact, if anyone came too close, they would chase it away with loud shouts or strange weapons, convinced that contact would bring misfortune. The wolf had no home and no family. It was alone, left to suffer in silence. The parasites were relentless. Tiny, almost invisible to the naked eye, they burrowed under the wolf's skin, biting, feeding, and leaving painful marks all over its body. Its fur had patches missing, revealing pale, raw skin underneath. Some of the wounds had begun to fester, forming sores that stung every time the wind blew or the wolf moved. The wolf had tried to lick and scratch at the sores, but it was only a temporary relief. The parasites were too many, and the wolf too weak to fight them all. Despite everything, the wolf kept moving. Hunger gnawed at its stomach, but it was not the hunger for food alone. It was a deeper, more desperate need to survive. Its legs were stiff, each step leaving it panting and trembling. The wolf's paws had cracks from walking over rough stones and hot sand. Some days it would stumble and fall, unable to get up immediately. But the wolf never gave up entirely. Deep inside, a small spark of life and hope still glimmered, pushing it forward through pain and exhaustion. The wolf's path led it near alien settlements from time to time. Sometimes it would watch from a distance as alien families went about their lives, laughing, hunting, or gathering. It longed to be part of a community, to find a place where it could rest and heal. But fear and superstition always kept the locals apart from it. Children would scream, adults would shout warnings, and the wolf would retreat, hiding behind rocks or in patches of strange alien vegetation. It learned quickly which places were too dangerous to enter, and which places offered even a small chance of safety down at night. The wolf would find a quiet spot to rest, often under a hollowed tree or near a cliff where the wind was less harsh. Sleep came in short bursts, interrupted by the itching and burning of the parasites. Every small movement caused pain, but the wolf had grown used to it. It had no choice. The wolf's eyes would remain open for long periods, scanning the darkness for predators or anything that might harm it further. Even in rest, it was alert, surviving on instinct and memory rather than comfort. Rain came sometimes, though rarely. When it did, the wolf would run into it, letting the water wash over its fur. The rain softened the dust and gave the wolf a brief sense of relief. For a moment, it could shake and let some of the parasites fall off. The wolf would close its eyes and lift its face to the sky, feeling the droplets hit its skin, wishing somehow that it could wash away all the pain, not just the parasites, but the loneliness, the hunger, the cold, the rejection. But the relief was fleeting. Soon the parasites returned, and the wolf had to start moving again, searching for food and shelter. Food was scarce. The wolf scavenged what it could: small alien rodents, strange plants, even insects. Its body was weak, and catching anything required more energy than it often had. Some days, the wolf would find nothing at all. Hunger and weakness made its movements slower and more desperate. It began to wander farther from the areas it knew, hoping to find something, anything, to eat. With every step, it risked encounters with alien predators, or the locals who would try to drive it away. Despite its suffering, the wolf never stopped learning. It remembered which areas had fresh water, which plants were safe to eat, and where predators tended to hunt. Its senses, heightened by constant danger, became sharp. Its ears could detect the faintest movement, its nose could smell the tiniest traces of food, and its eyes could spot motion, even in dim light. These skills helped it survive longer than most might expect. The locals sometimes commented on the wolf's stubbornness. "It will die soon," they would say. "The white one is cursed." But the wolf ignored these words, because it had learned that no one would help. Survival depended on its own willpower. Every day was a battle against pain, hunger, and isolation. The wolf had no choice but to fight, even when it felt that it could not go on. The wolf's mind wandered as it moved. Memories of better times, or perhaps imagined moments of safety, flickered in its consciousness. It remembered the warmth of sun on its fur, the sound of wind rustling through tall grass, and the taste of fresh water from a clean stream. These memories gave it strength. Even when its body screamed with pain, its mind clung to hope. It imagined a world where it might be accepted, where it might rest without fear, where it might be touched and cared for without being chased away. As days passed, the wolf's condition worsened. Its fur grew patchier, the sores deeper. Parasites multiplied faster than it could shake or scratch them off. Its legs grew weaker, and some days it could barely move at all. Still, the wolf kept going, driven by something deep inside, a force stronger than fear or pain. It was not just survival, it was determination, the raw will to live despite everything. One morning, the wolf stumbled near a canyon's edge. The wind was harsh, pushing against its weakened body, but the wolf moved forward, determined not to fall. It stopped for a moment, looking over the rocky terrain below. Nothing seemed familiar. There were no signs of food, no safe shelters, no friendly faces. Yet the wolf did not turn back. It had learned that moving forward, no matter how painful, was the only way to survive. As it continued its journey, the wolf became a ghostly figure against the red and gray landscape. Alien creatures paused to watch it pass, and some small predators hesitated, sensing the wolf's unusual presence. The locals rarely came near, as fear and superstition kept them away. The wolf was alone in every sense, a creature of suffering and resilience, navigating a world that had rejected it completely. Despite all this, the wolf never stopped. Every step, every struggle, every painful moment became a small victory. Even when the parasites bit, even when hunger clawed, even when exhaustion threatened to collapse it, the wolf moved on. It was a silent story of endurance, of life persisting against impossible odds, and of hope refusing to die. That the albino wolf did not know what the future held. It did not know that one day its life might change in ways it could never imagine. But for now, it moved forward, one careful step at a time, surviving in a world that had turned its back. The wolf's story was only beginning, and though it was a story of pain, it was also a story of determination, courage, and the unbroken will to live. The albino wolf's body was growing weaker by the day. The parasites were relentless. They seemed to cover every part of its skin, burrowing deep into its flesh, sucking life away bit by bit. Its movements became slower, and even the simplest action, like lifting its head or taking a step, required enormous effort. Every muscle ached, and its joints felt stiff and swollen. The wolf's eyes, once alert and bright, now seemed clouded with pain and fatigue. Hunger had become a constant companion. The wolf would sniff the air, searching for anything edible, small alien insects, strange plants, or tiny creatures scurrying through the barren ground. But food was scarce. The wolf often came up empty, and when it did find something, its body lacked the strength to hunt efficiently. Each failed attempt left it more exhausted and more desperate. Sometimes it would lie on the ground, panting heavily, feeling the heat of the alien sun burning its back, and it wondered if it would even survive until nightfall. The alien locals watched from a distance, sometimes whispering, sometimes pointing. They called the wolf cursed or blessed to die, and children ran away screaming whenever it appeared. Some adults threw small stones to scare it off. The wolf learned to avoid populated areas, even if food might have been found there. Survival meant staying hidden, moving quietly, and trusting no one. Every encounter with the locals left the wolf more cautious and more alone. The wolf's nights were filled with restless wandering. It could not rest for long because the parasites kept it awake, biting and burrowing. It scratched and licked furiously, but it was never enough. Its skin was raw in some areas, bleeding in others. Sometimes it would collapse near a stream or under a rock, too tired to continue. Even in those moments, it kept one eye open, wary of predators or the locals. Sleep came in short, broken bursts, never long enough to fully refresh its body. Rain brought only temporary relief. When droplets fell from the sky, the wolf would shake its fur violently, hoping to wash away some of the parasites. The water felt soothing against its hot, sore skin. For a few minutes, it could lift its head and breathe more easily. It imagined that the rain could wash away more than the parasites, that it could wash away the pain, the hunger, the loneliness. But the relief was always brief. Soon the parasites would return, clinging stubbornly to every inch of fur and skin, and the wolf would be back in the same cycle of pain. The wolf's mind was full of constant calculation. It remembered which areas had soft ground to rest on, which plants were safe to nibble, and which small predators could be hunted. Instinct and experience guided it more than anything else. Even its exhaustion could not stop it from scanning the environment for danger. Its senses were sharpened by necessity, ears tuned to the slightest rustle, nose alert to the faintest smell of food, eyes scanning for movement, no matter how subtle. It had become a creature entirely focused on survival. But survival was a constant struggle. Days passed where it found nothing to eat or drink. Hunger gnawed at it relentlessly, making it weak and desperate. Each step felt heavier, and its legs wobbled under the strain. Some days, it had to collapse mid-step and rest for long periods. Pain was a constant companion, and yet the wolf refused to give in completely. It had no choice but to keep moving. To stop was to invite death. The wolf's encounters with predators were rare but terrifying. A large alien bird swooped low, curious or hungry. The wolf barely managed to dodge it, running with the last of its energy. Its body ached and its legs trembled, but instinct pushed it forward. It had learned quickly that hesitation could cost life. Each near-death experience made it more alert, more careful, and more determined to survive despite everything. Loneliness weighed heavily on the wolf. Its kind was nowhere to be found. Albino wolves were extremely rare, and this one had never seen another like itself. Sometimes, when it howled into the empty night, it felt no response but the echo of its own voice. The sound was both comforting and heartbreaking. It reminded the wolf that it was alive, but it also reminded it that it was utterly alone in the world. The longing for companionship never left. Despite all this, small signs of resilience appeared. The wolf would sometimes find a small stream with fresh water, lapping at it carefully, feeling a tiny relief spread through its parched throat. On rare occasions, it would discover a patch of edible alien fruit or a scurrying insect. These small victories gave it bursts of energy and a fleeting sense of hope. Even when pain and exhaustion threatened to overpower it, these little moments reminded the wolf that survival was still possible. The wolf's body bore scars from its struggles. Deep scratches, raw wounds, and missing fur were visible. The parasites had left marks, that would never fully heal on their own. Some wounds became infected, causing swelling and additional pain. The wolf knew instinctively to avoid scratching too deeply, but it had no real protection against the constant bites. Every day was a battle against its own body, against the parasites that refused to let go. At times, the wolf's thoughts drifted to safety. It dreamed of a place where food was plentiful, water flowed freely, and predators did not exist. It imagined being able to rest for hours without pain, without fear, and without the constant irritation of parasites. These thoughts gave it strength, a kind of mental fuel to keep moving. Even when the physical body felt broken, the mind refused to surrender. One evening, the wolf stumbled near the edge of a cliff. The wind was strong, pushing against its thin, sore body. It paused, looking out over the alien landscape. The ground stretched endlessly, rocky and red, dotted with strange plants and alien formations. The wolf felt small and fragile in this vast world. It could barely imagine surviving another day, and yet it took another step. It had no choice but to keep moving, even if the path ahead was unclear and filled with danger. The wolf's pace slowed as darkness fell. Night on this planet brought cold, strange sounds, and more predators. The wolf found a shallow cave to rest in, curling up as tightly as its weak body would allow. It tried to sleep, but the parasites kept it awake. Still, it breathed slowly, conserving energy and closing its eyes for short moments. Its body shivered, its muscles protested. But even in these small periods of rest, the wolf was preparing for the next day, for the next search for food, water, and survival. Through it all, the wolf never lost its instinct to fight. Each day brought new pain, new hunger, new exhaustion, yet it continued. It was not just survival. It was determination, a raw, instinctual drive that refused to die. The wolf's story was not one of despair alone. It was a story of courage, resilience, and an unbroken will to live in a world that had turned its back on it. The wolf's eyes, though clouded with pain, still glimmered with life. It had survived countless challenges, avoided death countless times, and pushed its body beyond its limits. Each movement, each painful step was a testament to its determination. The wolf did not know what the future held. It did not know if relief, food, safety, or help would ever come. But it knew one thing clearly. It would keep moving, keep fighting, and keep trying to survive, no matter what. Even in its weakest moments, the wolf never gave up. Every twitch of its ears, every careful step, every attempt to hunt or find water was proof of its resilience. The albino wolf's life was a battle against nature, pain, and isolation. It was a silent struggle, unseen by most, but the wolf carried on, carrying the spark of life inside its fragile, battered body. The albino wolf had been struggling for weeks, each day a battle against exhaustion, hunger, and the relentless parasites that covered its body. Its once bright white fur was now matted and dirty, riddled with sores and open wounds. The wolf moved slowly across the barren landscape, every step heavy with pain, but its will to survive never wavered. It was alone, completely alone, in a world that had turned its back on it. One morning, as the wolf limped across a dusty plain, it sensed something unusual in the air. There was a smell it had never encountered before, something different from the alien plants and creatures it had grown used to. The wolf's ears twitched, its nose flaring as it sniffed cautiously. In the distance, it saw strange shapes moving slowly across the terrain, creatures unlike anything it had ever seen. Their skin was pale, and their movements were oddly smooth, almost deliberate. These beings were humans, and for the first time, the wolf did not recognize them as a threat. The humans were exploring the planet. They were scientists and medics, observing the environment, collecting samples, and recording data. They had arrived in a small transport vehicle and were now walking carefully across the rough terrain, taking notes and examining the strange alien flora. They were cautious, but not cruel. Unlike the local aliens, they had no superstition or fear of strange creatures. Their eyes were filled with curiosity and concern, and their presence radiated a calm confidence. The wolf observed them from a distance, hidden behind a large rock. It was weak, and any sudden movement could put it at risk. Yet something about these humans felt different. They did not shout or throw objects to scare the wolf away. Instead, they moved slowly, speaking to one another in soft voices that carried no malice. The wolf's instincts told it to stay hidden, but it also sensed an opportunity, a small chance that these beings might not be like the rest. Hours passed, and the humans set up a temporary base near a shallow valley. They moved with care, placing equipment, setting up shelters, and preparing for their research. The wolf, exhausted from days without proper food or rest, could barely move closer. But curiosity mixed with desperation pulled it forward. Hunger gnawed at its belly, and the sores on its body burned with every step. Yet the wolf could not resist the strange presence that might offer something new, something it had never known. Safety dot, it was late afternoon when the wolf finally stumbled closer to the human camp. Its legs shook violently, and its breathing was ragged. It collapsed behind a cluster of rocks, trying to catch its breath. The humans noticed movement at the edge of the clearing and turned their attention toward it. One of them, a medic, immediately saw the small, weak figure struggling to rise. The human's eyes widened in recognition, not fear, but concern. They had seen signs of suffering before, and the wolf's condition was alarming. The wolf, sensing the human's gaze, froze. Its body tensed, ready to flee if needed. Pain made it hesitant, but instinct told it to survive. It could see the humans moving closer carefully, hands raised slightly, not in aggression, but in reassurance. The medic spoke softly, their voice calm and gentle, carrying no threat. "It's okay," the medic said, though the wolf could not understand the words. The tone, however, was familiar in a way the wolf had longed for, a sign of care rather than harm. Slowly, the medic approached, moving deliberately to avoid startling the wolf. The wolf watched every step, its muscles coiled for flight, but something in the human's calmness eased its fears slightly. The medic carried a small kit with them, filled with instruments that the wolf could not comprehend. Their eyes scanned the animal carefully, noting the raw skin, the patches of missing fur, and the signs of severe parasitic infestation. The wolf's breathing grew shallower as the medic came closer, and it realized it had no strength to run. The first touch was gentle. The medic reached out slowly, letting the wolf feel no sudden force. The wolf flinched, but did not escape. It was too weak, and somehow it trusted the human enough to let them approach. The medic examined its body, checking wounds and assessing the damage. Every movement was careful, precise, and filled with purpose. The wolf could feel warmth and calm radiating from the medic, something entirely foreign in its life of pain and neglect. After the initial examination, the medic moved to prepare a place for the wolf to rest. They laid down soft blankets and cleared a safe space where the wolf could lie without being disturbed. The wolf, trembling and exhausted, collapsed onto the blankets. The human moved slowly, removing small parasites with delicate instruments, cleaning wounds, and applying soothing treatments. The wolf's eyes closed briefly in relief. It had been so long since anything had eased its suffering that the sensation was almost overwhelming. The other humans observed quietly, offering assistance when needed, but giving the medic space to work. They brought small amounts of water and carefully fed the wolf soft food that it could manage. Every action was patient and deliberate. The wolf began to sense that these humans were not like the locals. They were not here to scare, chase, or harm. They were here to help, and for the first time in its life, The wolf felt a small spark of hope. Hours passed, and the wolf slowly began to relax under the human's care. It still winced from pain and occasionally flinched from the parasites that had burrowed deep into its skin. But the medic was patient. Each touch, each treatment was gentle and precise. The wolf realized that it could trust these beings, at least enough to allow them to help. It was a new feeling, one the wolf had almost forgotten existed, the feeling of safety. Night fell, and the humans stayed nearby, monitoring the wolf carefully. The animal's breathing became steadier, and its eyes, though still clouded with pain, showed the first signs of alert curiosity. It looked around, observing the humans as they moved quietly, and slowly it lifted its head. There was no aggression in the humans, only care. The wolf felt something strange stirring inside, something like relief, like hope, like a small flame that refused to go out even after all the pain it had endured. As the night grew darker, the wolf rested as best it could. Its body ached, but the human's presence offered comfort. For the first time in many weeks, it did not feel completely alone. The world was still harsh, and the parasites were still a threat. But now there was someone to fight with it, to help ease its suffering, to offer protection. It was a small beginning, but it was enough. The wolf's journey had been long and filled with pain, but this moment marked a turning point. For the first time, it realized that survival might not be the only goal, that relief, care, and even trust could exist. The human medic had become a lifeline, a beacon in a world that had given it nothing but pain and rejection. The wolf did not yet understand what the future would hold, but it felt a sense of possibility it had not known before. As the stars appeared above the alien sky, the wolf curled up and rested, its body still weak, but its spirit slightly strengthened. Somewhere deep inside, it knew that this was only the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where survival would no longer be endured alone, where care and compassion could exist even in the most unlikely places. The wolf had faced unimaginable suffering, but it had survived, and now, with the humans' help, it had a chance to heal and perhaps even thrive. The albino wolf had never felt anything like this before. Pain was still a constant companion, and the parasites continued to bite and irritate its skin, but for the first time in weeks, it felt a strange sense of safety. The human medic moved slowly and deliberately, speaking softly, their hands gentle as they worked on the wolf's wounds. Every touch, every action was filled with care. The wolf had learned to trust instinctively over the years, and now it was learning something new, trust in another being. The medic began the first stage of real treatment. They carefully examined the wolf's body, noting the deep sores and the patches of fur that were completely gone. They used small, precise tools to remove clusters of parasites, working with patience and attention. The wolf flinched occasionally, the pain too sharp to ignore, but the medic adjusted, soothing the wolf with quiet words and calm motions. It had never experienced such care. In all its days, the locals had only chased it away or called it cursed. Now someone was saving it. The wolf's breathing remained shallow, and it whimpered softly when touched in particularly sore areas. Yet it did not try to flee. It was weak, yes, but more than that, it recognized the intention behind the medic's hands. There was no threat, no malice, only help. For hours, the medic worked, carefully cleaning wounds, removing parasites, and applying healing ointments. They brought water to the wolf in small amounts, letting it drink slowly. Every sip, every touch, was a small relief from weeks of suffering. The humans around the medic observed quietly, offering support when needed, but never crowding the wolf. They understood that too much movement or noise could frighten it. The wolf, sensing this patience, began to relax ever so slightly. Its body was still sore, but its mind began to sense a difference between fear and care. It had never known that these two things could exist side by side. In the same world. The local aliens were watching from a distance. They had seen the humans approach the wolf earlier and now hovered cautiously, unsure of what to do. Some of them spoke in whispers, warning the humans that the albino wolf was cursed, dangerous, or infected. But the humans ignored the warnings. They did not act out of fear or superstition. They acted out of knowledge, empathy, and the determination to save a life that no one else had cared about. The wolf noticed the tension. Its instincts were sharp. It could sense the fear in the nearby aliens and the calmness in the humans. Its body tensed, ready to run if threatened. But the medic continued working slowly, speaking in the same soft, reassuring voice. "It's okay. You're safe," they said, their tone carrying more meaning than the words themselves. The wolf did not understand language, but it understood intent. It felt the difference between being chased and being helped, between being feared and being cared for. The treatment was painstaking. The medic removed parasites one by one, cleaned sores with gentle precision, and applied antiseptic that stung but promised healing. The wolf flinched and whined, but it began to trust that the pain was temporary and that relief would follow. Hours turned into the evening, and the medic continued, refusing to rush the process. Every moment was dedicated to helping the wolf survive, to easing suffering that had lasted far too long. Water and food were introduced carefully. The wolf's body was too weak for large quantities at once, so the medic provided small sips and soft, easily digestible food. The wolf lapped at the water slowly, feeling the cool liquid soothe its throat. The small pieces of food offered strength, a small victory in the endless struggle for survival. The wolf realized that this was different from anything it had known before. Survival had always meant finding food alone, hiding from danger, and enduring pain. Now, someone else was helping it survive. At one point, the wolf became restless. Pain made it shift and move, and instinct urged it to flee from the humans. But the medic was patient. They adjusted their approach, speaking softly, moving slowly, and giving the wolf space when needed. The wolf watched the humans, feeling something unfamiliar: trust. It allowed them to continue the treatment while remaining cautious, balancing instinct with the realization that help was genuine. Night fell, and the temperature dropped sharply. The wolf curled up on the soft blankets the humans had provided, shivering from exhaustion and cold. The medic stayed nearby, monitoring its breathing and occasionally adjusting its position to ensure comfort. The wolf's eyes, heavy with fatigue, flickered open from time to time, observing the humans' movements. They were calm, deliberate, and focused entirely on helping it. For the first time in weeks, the wolf felt a sense of relief, a small hope that survival might not be a lonely struggle anymore. During the night, the wolf dreamed faintly. Memories of the alien landscape, the struggle for food, and the relentless pain of parasites mingled with strange new images, the warmth of gentle hands, the soothing voice of the medic, the sensation of soft blankets beneath its body. The wolf could not understand fully what these dreams meant, but they left a strange feeling in its heart, a sense that perhaps there was more to life than pain and survival. By morning, the wolf's body showed small signs of recovery. Its breathing was steadier, its eyes slightly brighter, and its movements less strained. The medic resumed treatment with careful precision, continuing to remove parasites and clean wounds. They brought fresh water and soft food, helping the wolf regain energy. Each small action brought incremental improvement, and the wolf began to sense the possibility of a future where suffering would no longer be constant. The locals, still observing from a distance, grew more uneasy. They had never seen the albino wolf treated with care. Their whispers spread, some expressing fear, others curiosity. Yet the humans remained focused entirely on the wolf, ignoring the distractions. The wolf, sensing the human's unwavering attention, allowed itself to relax more fully. It realized that the danger was not with these beings, but with its own weakness and the world that had abandoned it. As the day progressed, the wolf slowly began to move with more confidence. It shifted on the blankets, tested its legs, and even attempted to stand briefly. The medic encouraged it gently, supporting its movements and offering praise in soothing tones. The wolf felt a strange mixture of fear and determination. Pain still dominated its body, but for the first time, it experienced the feeling of progress, of small victories that were not its own alone, but shared with someone who cared. By evening, the wolf had managed to take a few careful steps without collapsing. It still winced from pain and occasionally lay down to rest, but it was stronger than before. The medic observed every detail, adjusting treatment and care as needed. The wolf began to sense a rhythm in this new world: rest, treatment, nourishment, observation, and gentle guidance. For the first time, it realized that survival could be guided by someone else's care. That trust could be rewarded, and that healing was possible. The night came again, and the wolf curled up, exhausted but slightly stronger. The medic stayed nearby, ensuring that the wolf remained safe and comfortable. The fire of hope flickered more brightly inside the wolf. It had endured unimaginable suffering, but now it could see that relief and care were not impossible. Someone had chosen to fight for its survival, and in return, the wolf began to understand that it could allow itself to be helped, to accept compassion that it had never known before. The albino wolf's journey was far from over. Parasites still infested its body, wounds were not fully healed, and the world outside remained harsh and dangerous. But for the first time, the wolf understood that it was not completely alone. It had discovered that trust could exist, that care could be genuine, and that life could continue beyond mere survival. The wolf had endured pain, fear, hunger, and isolation, but now it faced a new challenge: learning to heal, to trust, and to live again with the guidance of someone who truly cared. By the end of the fourth day, the wolf had grown noticeably stronger. Its breathing was steady, its movements more fluid, and it even lifted its head without wincing as much as before. The medic continued to work patiently, carefully monitoring its progress. The wolf had begun to experience a feeling it had never known before: safety. A sense of calmness that replaced, at least temporarily, the constant anxiety of survival. For the first time in its life, the albino wolf had hope. It had survived impossible conditions, endured unimaginable pain, and now, through the care of a human medic, it had begun to understand that life could be more than just a struggle. There could be comfort, there could be healing, and there could be trust. It was a fragile beginning, but it was enough to change the wolf's path forever. The albino wolf had come a long way, but its journey was far from over. Its body was still covered with sores, and the tiny parasites had not been completely eliminated. Every day was a battle to regain strength, and the wolf felt pain with every movement. Yet something inside it had begun to change. For the first time in its life, it was not completely alone. The human medic stayed by its side, patiently working to remove the parasites, clean the wounds, and help the wolf regain energy. The recovery process was slow. Removing the parasites required precision and patience. Each tiny creature had to be carefully taken off without causing further harm. The wolf flinched at times, the pain sharp and unrelenting. But the medic remained calm and gentle, speaking softly, letting the wolf know, in tone and gesture, that everything being done was to help. Slowly, the wolf began to understand that this pain was temporary and that relief was possible. Feeding the wolf was another challenge. Its stomach had grown weak from days and weeks without proper nourishment. The medic brought soft, easy-to-digest food, small portions at a time, letting the wolf eat at its own pace. Water was given carefully, in measured amounts, to avoid overwhelming its fragile system. Each sip, each bite, gave the wolf energy, a small victory in the long road to recovery. The wolf's movements were still unsteady. At first, it could barely lift its head without straining. Legs that had carried it across harsh terrain for so long trembled as the wolf attempted to stand. But the medic encouraged it, gently supporting its weight, helping it take small steps. These steps were painful, but they were progress. The wolf began to feel the strength returning to its limbs, a slow but steady renewal of its body. Days passed, each filled with careful treatment and observation. The wolf learned to trust the medic completely. When the human approached, it no longer flinched instinctively. It allowed the gentle hands to examine wounds, remove parasites, and apply healing ointments. The wolf could feel the difference between cruelty and care. It had known only pain and neglect, but now it felt something entirely new: compassion. The sensation was strange, but comforting, and it filled the wolf with a growing sense of hope. The nights were still difficult. The wolf curled up on the blankets provided, shivering from exhaustion and the remnants of pain. But it slept more soundly than it had in weeks. Dreams of the alien landscape, of hunting and fleeing, were now mixed with something gentler, the feeling of warmth, the human's presence nearby, and a sense of safety that the wolf had never known. For the first time, it could rest without constant fear of attack or rejection. The wolf's body slowly began to change. Its fur, though still patchy, became cleaner and softer in areas where healing had begun. Wounds closed gradually, and the swelling from infections started to reduce. Energy returned in small bursts. The wolf could stand longer, walk farther, and even test its strength by stretching and moving more freely. Each small improvement strengthened its will to survive even more. There were setbacks, of course. Some sores reopened when the wolf shifted, and new parasites sometimes appeared, forcing the medic to intervene again. The wolf would flinch, yelp softly, or try to move away. But the medic's calm presence and patient touch reassured it. Slowly, the wolf began to understand that this process, though painful, was necessary. Pain could coexist with care, suffering with relief, and weakness with strength. The wolf was learning that recovery was not instantaneous, but achievable. The humans also helped the wolf regain its instincts. It had been weak and cautious for so long that even simple movements were difficult. The medic encouraged it to test its legs, to walk short distances, and eventually to run a few steps. Each attempt was met with gentle guidance, praise, and reassurance. The wolf grew stronger day by day, its muscles rebuilding, its stamina returning. With each success, the spark of life inside it burned brighter. The wolf's eyes changed too. The cloudiness of pain and exhaustion slowly lifted, replaced with alertness and curiosity. It began to watch the human's movements with interest rather than fear. It noticed how they spoke softly to each other, how they moved with care, and how they seemed genuinely concerned for its well-being. The wolf began to realize that life could be more than a struggle. It could include moments of kindness, of rest, and even companionship. The bond between the wolf and the medic grew stronger. The wolf followed the human around the temporary camp, sometimes stumbling, sometimes dragging itself along, but always staying close. The medic spoke to the wolf in gentle tones, offered soft touches, and encouraged small movements. The wolf, in turn, began to trust the human not just with its body, but with its presence. It allowed itself to rely on someone else, a completely new experience after so many weeks of isolation and pain. Other humans in the team respected the wolf's space. They understood the fragile trust that had been built and did not crowd or overwhelm it. The wolf responded to the medic's voice, sometimes nuzzling the hand that had treated it. These were small gestures, but they marked progress. The wolf had survived unimaginable suffering and neglect. And now, through patience and care, it was learning to feel safe, to feel hope, and to feel the possibility of life beyond survival. By the end of the week, the wolf's improvements were noticeable. Its fur, though still pale and matted in places, had patches of clean, soft hair. Its legs carried it farther, and its body trembled less with every movement. The wolf began to test its strength by exploring the immediate area around the camp. Each successful step filled it with confidence and reinforced its trust in the human who had saved it. The wolf began to show small signs of playfulness. It would chase a stray piece of cloth thrown gently by the medic or nuzzle against the blankets in a way that showed comfort. These were moments of joy, tiny glimpses of life that had been absent for so long. The wolf was no longer just surviving, it was beginning to live. Despite the progress, the wolf remained cautious. Its history of neglect and suffering had left scars deeper than wounds. It still flinched at sudden movements or loud noises. But the medic's patient care slowly erased these fears. The wolf learned to read gestures, tones, and intentions. It discovered that some beings could be trusted, and that trust could bring relief rather than danger. As the days turned into weeks, the wolf's body grew stronger. The sores healed more fully, and the parasites were finally under control. The wolf could walk longer distances, move more confidently, and even attempt short runs. Its eyes sparkled with alertness and life. It had endured so much, and yet it had survived, strengthened by the patient care and compassion of a human who refused to give up on it. The wolf had been abandoned, neglected, and left to suffer in a harsh world. Its survival had seemed unlikely. But now, through persistence, patience, and love, the wolf was slowly reclaiming its body, its spirit, and its will to live. It had discovered a new reality, a life where pain could be eased, hunger could be satisfied, and trust could be given and returned. The albino wolf's journey was far from complete, but Part 5 marked a turning point. Its body was healing, its mind was opening to hope, and its heart, if a wolf's heart could hold such things, was beginning to trust again. It had endured unimaginable suffering and emerged stronger, prepared for the final stage of its journey, learning to thrive, not just survive, in a world that had once turned its back on it. The albino wolf had changed in ways that no one could have imagined. Weeks of pain, neglect, and exhaustion had given way to healing, strength, and trust. Its fur, once dull and patchy, was regaining a soft, clean texture. Its legs, once weak and trembling, carried it with growing confidence. And its eyes, once clouded with pain and fear, now shone with curiosity and alertness. The wolf had endured unimaginable suffering, but it had survived, and it had begun to live again. The humans continued their care, observing every movement, every breath, and every sign of discomfort. The medic was always patient, never rushing, always speaking in soft, reassuring tones. The wolf had come to understand that these beings were different from the locals. They did not chase it, fear it, or see it as cursed. Instead, they were entirely focused on helping it heal. Slowly, the wolf began to respond in kind, leaning into gentle touches, following movements, and even nuzzling hands in moments of trust. It was a delicate balance. The wolf had survived for so long on instinct alone, trusting nothing and no one. Now, it had to learn a new way of existing a life where trust could be given, where care could be received, and where pain was not constant. Every day, the wolf took small steps. It would explore the area around the human camp, testing its strength, sniffing new scents, and cautiously approaching the humans. Each successful interaction reinforced the idea that life could be different, that the world could be more than survival against all odds. Food and water were now consistent. The wolf no longer had to scavenge desperately for nourishment. Meals were provided carefully, suited to its recovering body, and it began to regain weight and strength. Its legs grew stronger, its movements more fluid, and its stamina returned. The wolf was learning what it meant to be well fed, to have energy, and to move without the constant drag of pain and exhaustion. These were small luxuries, but they felt monumental after weeks of suffering. The wolf began to test its limits. It would take longer walks around the camp, stretching its legs and running short distances. Each step, each sprint, was a triumph over its past weakness. Sometimes it would chase a moving piece of cloth or a small insect, feeling the rush of energy return. Other times it would simply rest in the sun, soaking warmth into its aching muscles, feeling for the first time what it meant to relax without constant fear. Nighttime still brought challenges. The wolf had never fully recovered from the months of pain and fear, and sleep was often uneasy. But the medic stayed nearby, offering comfort and reassurance. The wolf curled up on soft blankets, listening to the calm presence of the humans around it. For the first time, it experienced something it had never known: safety. The wolf could rest, knowing that no harm would come, that it would wake to food, warmth, and care rather than pain and neglect. The bond between the wolf and the medic deepened. The wolf began to follow the human even more closely, watching their every move, learning from their actions, and responding to gentle gestures. The medic spoke softly, stroked its fur, and guided it through exercises to strengthen its body. The wolf began to understand that help could be consistent and reliable, and slowly, it allowed itself to relax in ways it had never known as the days passed. The wolf's instincts began to balance with this new sense of security. It was still cautious, still alert to danger, but it no longer flinched at every movement. It learned to distinguish between threats and safety, between fear and care. It explored the alien landscape near the camp with confidence, testing its skills, and discovering that the world could be navigated without constant suffering. The locals continued to watch from a distance, whispering and pointing. Some were curious, some fearful, but all were confused by the wolf's transformation. They had never seen such care extended to a creature they considered cursed. The wolf, sensing the attention, remained calm, bolstered by the presence of the humans who had saved it. The alien onlookers could not understand that trust and patience could change a life. The wolf now lived proof of that truth. The wolf's body was nearly fully healed. Wounds had closed, fur had regrown in most areas, and parasites were almost entirely gone. Its movements were fluid, and it could leap, run, and explore with vigor. The wolf had regained not just physical strength, but confidence and spirit. It was no longer the weak, trembling creature that had wandered alone across harsh terrain. It was a survivor, a fighter, and a creature ready to embrace life again. The medic encouraged the wolf to engage in playful activities, reinforcing trust and strength. The wolf chased objects, explored terrain, and even interacted with the humans in small, affectionate ways. These were not just exercises, they were moments of joy, moments where the wolf remembered what it meant to feel alive beyond the pain. Each playful leap, each gentle nuzzle, was a victory over the suffering it had endured for so long. Finally, the time came for the wolf to leave the temporary camp. It had recovered enough to return to the wild, but now it faced the world with strength, trust, and experience. The humans guided it to a safe territory where food and water were abundant, and where predators were less likely to pose an immediate threat. The wolf explored cautiously at first, testing the environment, but confidence and strength returned quickly. The wolf stood at the edge of a clearing, lifted its head, and howled. The sound echoed across the alien landscape, powerful and clear. It was a howl of survival, of triumph, of life reclaimed. A wolf had endured months of suffering, neglect, and pain, yet it had survived. Now it had the chance to thrive, not just survive. The humans watched quietly, understanding that their role had changed. They had guided the wolf through its darkest days, but now it belonged to the world again. The wolf turned its gaze toward them, eyes bright and aware, and nuzzled the medic one last time, a gesture of trust, gratitude, and connection. Then it moved into the wild, strong, free, and alive. For the first time in its life, the albino wolf knew safety, hope, and possibility. It had survived where survival seemed impossible. It had endured where endurance seemed futile. And now, with strength, trust, and courage restored, it had the chance to live fully in a world that had once turned its back. The wolf's journey was complete, but its life was just beginning. The humans departed, leaving the wolf to its reclaimed life. They had witnessed transformation in its purest form, a creature saved from pain, taught to trust, and restored to health. The wolf moved confidently through the alien landscape, its white fur shining under the sun, its eyes alert and curious, its heart full of life. Its story, once one of suffering and neglect, had become one of healing, hope, and the unbreakable will to survive. Even as it disappeared into the distance, the albino wolf left a mark on those who had helped it, a reminder that compassion, patience, and determination could change a life, even in the harshest of worlds. And somewhere deep inside, the wolf carried that gift with it, the knowledge that life, no matter how harsh, could be transformed with care, trust, and courage.